Hello, friends. Welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star. Become a diehard. $59.99 for the rest of the weekend. The hottest sale in the Valley right now, outside the Valley. Go PHNX.com. $79. Nope. Slash to $59.99. Going to get you a free hat and or shirt every single year. You're a diehard. I'm diehard about this. I'm diehard about this team. Arizona Cardinals on their much-deserved bye. Bo Brack, Johnny Venerable. Better time than now, maybe, to do a deep dive on the Cardinals' current squad, maybe their future squad, and some big-ticket items on the docket for the next half calendar year, Bo.
You know, as you kind of make your way through a 3-10 season, sure, there's some things that are encouraging that you like to see. You like to see the return of Kyler Murray. You like to see what Jonathan Gannon's made of, what kind of roster Monti Ossenfort can throw together on the fly while rebuilding at the same time. But it's tough to get away from looking ahead, right, to the offseason. You know, that Monti Ossenfort told Dave Pasch, Michael Bidwell told Dave Pasch at some point on his podcast, you know, that they're going to have their scouting in place. It's the 2024 offseason. That's the key. And with all this draft capital, with all that cap space, why not look at the Cardinals roster, at least who's at least locked in at this point to 2024, and see where the Cardinals could upgrade, because they certainly need it.
Yeah, this is a roster that we asked it yesterday. Has it overachieved? And I think we got some mixed answers, but definitely room for improvement. Now, before we talk about where those improvements should come from, will come from, we got 4 games left. And there's some lingering questions as it relates to like this roster, free agents, and you talk about guys under contract that maybe shouldn't be under contract because Ossenfort didn't sign them to their contract. Who would you say, Bo Brack, is under the most pressure to perform? We've got the substantial amount of games. A quarter of the season remain against top shelf playoff level opponents, San Francisco, of course, Philadelphia, Seattle's mixed in there. And then we have our little tasty treat Sunday against the Chicago Bears. But, this is a great evaluation period. But who do you believe right now on the Cardinals roster is under the most pressure to perform the last 4 games of the season?
I think as far as who's under the most pressure, that the ship might have already sailed on 2 of these guys, in Hollywood Brown and Marco Wilson. Marco Wilson might not be on this roster come early in the offseason, right? I mean, it's as far as he played special teams last week, it fell out of favor for undrafted free agents, right? I mean, you got Devad Wilson starting at cornerback and playing 100% of the snaps for the Cardinals against the Steelers, along with Keitrell Clark, who was, benched for a couple weeks, but made his way into the good graces of the coaching staff, showed him enough, and was not named Marco Wilson enough to get into the lineup. So Marco Wilson, the ship might have sailed already, but if he ever gets his opportunity, the pressure's on. And then Hollywood Brown. But if you're asking me as far as, okay, who's the jury really still out on? Like, who is somebody we haven't really formulated a real conviction on? And I think, with his 5th-year option coming up, to make a decision on that, Zaven Collins, I think, needs to show something in the next 4 games. You're encouraged, but it's a position change. And is he shown you enough to where you want to invest the 5th-year option, which would be over $12 million for his 5th season in the NFL? Or do you just say, okay, let's play out his 4th year and just kind of have that as a prove it year for him? So I think Zaven Collins is certainly somebody that has a lot to prove over the next couple games.
Yeah, to me, it's the threesome you just named. It's Marco Wilson, Hollywood Brown, and Zaven Collins. And I think 2 of those 3 guys are going to be gone. That's my opinion. I think Marco Wilson, to your point, it's not like he's a bad guy. I was grossly incorrect. I thought he'd flourish under Jonathan Gannon. He has the physical tools. It's just not a good fit. He's been benched for late round picks, undrafted guys. I think Marco Wilson, either he's traded this offseason for a late round pick, maybe he's traded during the draft, or he's outright released. I think it's more so like they're not going to save money doing that necessarily. It's going to be basically, we want to free up a roster spot for some other people, because we're going to touch on cornerback a little bit later in the show. But to me, that's the position that they'll be most aggressive on in free agency. I think they'll go big game hunting. I think they'll sign some supplemental players. I know that they view that position as something that of a facelift necessary. And that's not a knock on Garrett Williams and Keitrell Clark, but they need some stability, some veteran leadership at that role that Marco was not filling. And then I think Zaven's an interesting one. Do they want Zaven on the team? Is he a good teammate, a good player situationally? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've asked that question a lot. I think Hollywood Brown fits in that category. You want Hollywood Brown on your team. You don't want him on your team for 15 to 20 million. And unfortunately for Zaven, they have to make a decision as it relates to his fifth-year option. I think that you and I maybe 6 weeks ago thought he's trending toward having that, picked up. He was on pace for like the quietest 8 to 10 sack season in recent memory. What's happened? He's gone cold. And that's unfortunate, because I thought it was the opposite approach. With Zaven and somebody that's switching positions, you can have a slow start to the year. 4, 6, 7 games. It's like, okay, middling, right? We're getting our bearings about us. He should be playing, in my opinion, Bo, his best football this month in December. And the opposite has really happened. Like, he had a nice tackle in the open field, tackle for loss against Pittsburgh. But if I'm paying somebody 12, 15, $17 million per season to rush the passer, we need to feel your presence. And the only person right now that I think gives them a consistent boost on the edge is BJ Ojulari. And even so, he's fallen off a little bit. That's a position, cornerback, and then wide receiver with Hollywood Brown. It's not a coincidence that 3 guys under the most pressure, 3 biggest needs on the team, including, tackle and defensive tackle. I think right now we've got more questions than answers. I think Zaven Collins is on the team next year, but I think it's on the Cardinals' terms, and I think he's a free agent in 2025.
Yeah, I think that the opportunity, I certainly think that there was, and it was maybe a long shot to go from off-ball linebacker position that he played, even, most of his life, the collegiate level for sure.
Yeah.
And even though his body type, his skill set kind of shows that he's probably better off the edge, and that's what Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis and Monti Ossenfort, their vision, what they saw. But you just making the switch isn't that easy at the NFL level. I think what people are saying in the chat, fantastic entries. You got Ken saying DJ, Zaven, Hollywood, that's his 3. John saying, how about left tackle DJ Humphries, as you kind of mentioned? Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations where I was really down on DJ Humphries, like a lot of people, because twofold. He wasn't playing well and couldn't stay healthy. I guess threefold, and he's expensive. But great person, great locker room guy. I mean, Bo, he's the guy that they put out in front of everybody this offseason as a stalwart, right? He came back from training camp, had a little ding, and he's been, knock on wood, available every game but one. He missed 1 game that Kelvin Beachum had to start. Here's what I'll say about DJ Humphries. If you look at the cap for next year, okay, he has the 3rd highest cap hit, $22.9 million. Now, if you cut him, you're only going to designate him as a post-June 1st cut, because you're going to save $16 million in the process and only have about $6 million in dead cap. It wouldn't make sense to cut him before then. You'd have to designate him as a post-June 1st. Well, why would you want to do that otherwise? What happens if the Cardinals do get Marvin Harrison Jr.? Well, you might need DJ Humphries. It's the insurance contingency plan. It's the same reason why they signed Kelvin Beachum last year. They didn't know if they were going to get Paris. We got to have him in the fold just in case he has to start. We got to keep DJ Humphries at least through April 1st, April 30th, May 1st, just in case we don't get Fashanu, Joe Alt, a first-round tackle. I mean, you and I did an experiment earlier today. It was basically like, you get Marvin, maybe you get a developmental tackle later in pick 18 or the 2nd round, but are they ready to play? In that case, you're weighing a lot of certain scenarios. But I think if you're taking one of these top 2 tackles, you cut DJ Humphries, you set him out into the market, you recoup that money.
Yeah.
And I think we would know early on, like if they're picking 4 or 5, I think they're going to be playing in that sandbox. But if we finish the season, best case scenario, it's weird for DJ Humphries, is if the Cardinals lose games, they get Marvin at 3. I think his job's secure.
Yeah, well, let me say this as far as how I view this organization and their decision makers between Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon and his staff is, I don't know, especially with a first round pick, if they draft a developmental guy. Like Jonathan Gannon is all about guys playing who are active on game day, and I just don't know if they take a red shirt type player and like keep DJ Humphries and then keep a developmental tackle. I just don't know.
Would you consider that also for like pick 34 then, which almost is a first round pick as well?
Right. I mean, I think that they're going to look for guys that they want to get their failures out of the way and get up to speed. Like, let's not fool ourselves. I think that this roster is going to be vastly improved between now and the kickoff of the 2024 season. But the expectations still remain that they're a draft and develop team. And if they go tackle, I don't think that they're going to have a guy in DJ Humphries that's standing in the way of playing time. I think, you know, it could be very similar, though, to what you're saying. Like, they do have a hashtag blessed amount of cap space that they're not going to have to maneuver around, right? It's not like last year where they're little cap strung from the previous regime. But I think, like, Monti Ossenfort will err on the side of caution at first, right? See how the draft plays out with DJ Humphries on the roster. And then if they get a tackle in place in the draft in the first round, right? I mean, I think developmental, you could go later in the draft, but I think
third round pick and beyond. Right. I think we could see a right tackle at pick 30, whatever, and maybe Paris kicks over. But what do you do with Kelvin Beachum then? Because you're not, I mean, that's too many cooks in the kitchen. Could you see a scenario, Bo? But I think if you opened it up, and this might be disrespectful to DJ, and said, hey, we've got a franchise caliber left tackle, albeit over 30 years old. He's under contract. And you go to a team like Carolina who needs offensive linemen, who's got cap space, give us a pick for DJ Humphries. Is that something that you think they would entertain? I certainly do.
Yeah.
When you have a surplus, because they still have Kelvin Beachum on the roster next year.
Well, when you look at DJ Humphries' contract, I mean, what you're going to see starting left tackles that become available, or people that are viewed as left tackles or tackles, you're going to see them approach DJ Humphries' cap number, salary number, if not exceed it. So it probably would be tantalizing and invaluable for the Arizona Cardinals. But at the same time, like, I don't think Kelvin Beachum helps Monti Ossenfort sleep at night through the offseason if he's moving forward with the idea that he's your starting right tackle or left tackle. I think he likes him as depth. I think he liked him enough to bring him back and make sure that he had, you know, an offensive lineman that's, you know, starting caliber or like replacement value at least. But I don't think they envision a guy like Kelvin Beachum at any point. I don't care if it's just during the offseason as a starter. Like, and that's not any disrespect to Kelvin Beachum. What he's been asked to do, what he's done, like a tip of the cap to Kelvin Beachum and a tip of the cap to DJ Humphries. I think DJ Humphries, what he does, it does certainly, I think it transcends his play on the field to where, you know, Jonathan Gannon views him as a leader in that locker room. The organization views him as a leader, and, you know, that can't be discounted.
Well, I think you brought up a good point. It's going to be, I think, less and less likely for both of the veteran tackles to be on the roster, maybe in May, right?
Right.
Like, because I dismissed grossly the idea of Humphries being back next year. I could be proven wrong. Like, you could try to squeeze that lemon one more year, that orange. I wouldn't recommend it. I think they need to get younger and more athletic. I think this is probably a good chance maybe for you to sell high on DJ Humphries. Like, he's cost control. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and it might be robust, $22 million. But for a team that needs a tackle that maybe isn't picking high in the draft, that wants that starting experience, like, he's still grading out relatively high on PFF, and he's getting better as the year goes on. You would just have to be convinced, in my opinion, that you could get a guy to play either left or right tackle. If you take Alt or Fashanu 4 or 5th overall, in my opinion, then you keep Paris Johnson Jr. on the right-hand side, whereas some of these second-tier tackles, you would have to do a lot of heavy lifting. It's like, okay, Harris is going to move to the left side. We're starting a rookie on the right side. We just did that. There'd be some growing pains there. So they're going to have to weigh all that. You also have to weigh the reality in which they do not, in my opinion, have a starting caliber left guard on the roster. That's the one position where if you're starting a tackle, that's a rookie, that's a baby, then you need to have a big boy next to him. I think Paris Johnson Jr. thrived this year. He's an exceptional prospect and player, but he's also had the benefit of Will Hernandez, ass kicker, veteran player to his left. Yeldon Froholt's had a nice year. I think we talked about corner, and we're going to talk about some options here later on in the show. I feel like left guard is a place where you have to invest in March. Left guard is a clear hole for this team.
Yeah, and I think Baldy pointed this out a couple weeks ago when we were asking about what we viewed as DJ Humphrey struggling at the time, and he said, "Well, there's their left guard position is in flux. I mean, that's the position they haven't been able to nail down and get consistent play from since training camp. Like Elijah Wilkinson took that job, he ran with it. Season opened up. Elijah Wilkinson didn't look great until he went on the IR. He's recently been designated to return, and by no means should that give you optimism that there's gonna at some point he's gonna come back and be this rock solid guard. And he's only under contract through this season. And then you've seen Tristan Colon, also a guy under contract just through 2023. And most recently, Carter O'Donnell, who pointed out on Twitter today, I'm still looking for the phantom hold call.
I think he's done the most admirable job of all of them.
Sure.
I think he's done the best to not.
And he's a tackle that's been kicked in. He's kind of a tackle. So I still don't think that any of those are options. And we'll go through the roster in 2024 or who's under contract, and I don't think there's anybody here. Cardinal Charles was pointing out Rondell Moore. I think Rondell Moore does have a lot to show between now and the end of the season.
Here's what I will say: I don't think he's helped himself considerably, but I think you've seen enough where you're at least tantalized by the possibility. And I think he has kind of stolen a little bit of Hollywood's presence in terms of what we think Hollywood Brown is. In terms of the deep play. I think you could afford to have Rondell Moore on your team next year, making no money, under contract, which is a comparison. Hollywood Brown is not under contract for next year, making no money as your third or fourth receiver. Now, I don't want to call Rondell Moore a gimmick player, but I do think he's open a lot. He's available downfield a lot. He should have had a touchdown that was removed. That would have been his second touchdown in 3 weeks with Kyler Murray. Deep shots, right? I think, do they want to get physical and more athletic at receiver? Yes. And I think they will add 2 receivers of note, whether it's Marvin, a different draft pick, maybe a free agent, to come in and even things out with Michael Wilson. But that doesn't mean Hollywood Brown can be a luxury for you. He can have a skill set of 4 to 6 guys. Does that mean you should re-sign him a year from now? No, but in terms of putting the best player and the cast of characters on the field in 2024 to help you, I think Rondell Moore has big play potential. He's just, you would rather have taken him in the 5th or 6th round, given what you're getting now. It doesn't add up. We have to remove the idea, at least I do. He was a 2nd round pick. That was a mistake, right? Yeah. What's his 2nd round pick look like? It looks like Trey McBride. It looks like Budda Baker when you hit on those guys, right? The high end. Whereas Rondell Moore, I think he's a serviceable NFL player that you probably should have taken on day 3, certainly. But I think I feel better actually about his future on the Cardinals than I do Hollywood Brown, because he makes no money and he's getting open.
Sure. And he's adaptable. He's versatile. He's going to do anything that the coaching staff's going to ask of him. Mike and both Richard bringing up John Gaines, who went out with the ACL injury in the preseason finale. He was playing some center. He was playing some guard in training camp. Very versatile player. He was the most athletic offensive lineman at the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine. And he's somebody that, the guy was reciting poetry at his press conference. He's an impressive young man. And I think he's going to probably push to be ready by, hopefully by the end of their OTAs. And somebody that's going to be ready for training camp, but still an unknown to me. I I don't know if Monti Ossenfort, I think he's just too he's going to cover all his bases to the point where he's not going to just, hey, this is our guy and we're moving forward with Jonathan Gaines. I think that they'd still want to learn a lot about him and where he fits the best, because as much of a jack of all trades he is, like, it's still that thing, like master of none, right? So does he fit at center? Does he fit at guard? They do want to tap into his versatility, but that's not a starting player.
No, and I think I go back to what our guy Brian Baldinger told us so many times. You get better by playing, and he was stripped of the opportunity to play this year, because you and I both know he'd be playing left guard right now.
Yeah,
we think.
Hopefully,
given the options. Wait, he'd be playing something. He'd be practicing. I think he is up against it next year. Not necessarily to make the team, but like anytime you miss the entire rookie year, I think you have to chalk that draft pickup, fair or not. It's easier to digest because the draft class itself has been so productive, dare I say a hit. But you have to chalk it up as anything we get from this player moving forward is a plus. That's how I view. Now, if it's Jonathan Cooper, who's the 7th overall pick, you're on your knees hoping and praying it works out. But I mean, they had so many picks anyway. He was a 4th rounder. Let's see what I think you just go into camp saying, we'll have an open mind, go out there and compete. But like, they're going to sign a veteran. They're going to sign a big boy who's played and started games in the NFL. I think they'd be wise to draft a versatile interior lineman with, Hernandez under contract, just one more year, Froholt. I think we'll see the foundation of the interior pipeline start to develop a little bit. But, I like Gaines a lot. He was super productive in the offseason, had one of the best combines of any interior offensive lineman we've seen in some time. So it's just nice to see an organization.
I mean, how often are people talking about backup center guards, and people were asking you and I about John Gaines all preseason?
I think because we all fell in love with this draft class because we knew they were going to play, and the roster was in such a shit position. It was in a terrible position. Is it better, Bo Brack? We're going to talk about glaring holes on this roster here in a little bit, but I do want to ask you. Somebody put this in the chat. So what's Greg Dortch's current contract situation? You host a podcast with Greg Dortch.
Yeah.
Break down what you think his future will be, maybe his market will be.
I mean, we're best friends, basically. I mean, both born and raised in Virginia. We're on the same podcast. I mean, he won't return most of my phone calls, and my texts go left on red, but because he's busy getting ready for the next game.
Yeah.
And hopefully enjoying his bye week. But no, I'm joking. I mean, I think Greg Dortch is he turned into one like a Kelvin Beachum, Will Hernandez situation this upcoming offseason. It was so easy for the team to just tap and hit, pick up his option, or he was a restricted free agent, and just tender him that deal. And bing, bang, boom, he's right back on the roster, and they've got a wide receiver, a versatile player that's playing teams and doing everything that they ask him to. But now he's going to be in a driver's seat situation to where he can go play the market. He's not a restricted free agent. He's going to be unrestricted free agent. And, I'm sure he loves his team. He'll do anything for this organization. This was the organization. And I'm speaking on behalf of Greg, and I don't want to, speak out of line here, but I think that he's earned, this is me speaking, he's earned the opportunity to go test the market and see if there's a role out there to get him a multi-year with guaranteed dollars deal and get a true defined role, and not have to carve something out from day one.
I think he's put out a lot of good tape over the last 2 years that a lot of teams are wisely going to look at and say, let's have this guy come and have a bigger role for us. Now, I also think we're talking about who's under the most pressure. I think he might have the most to gain this last 4 weeks of the season if Hollywood can't get right. Michael Wilson, God forbid, is still banged up. Like, he was the number one receiver for this team on Sunday against Pittsburgh, albeit with one catch, and helped them win that game. And he's such a dynamic player with the ball in his hands, punt return, kickoff return. Like, I think he can make himself, and I hope that he does, a substantial amount of money this offseason. I just, it feels like to me, as much as I want him back here, like selfishly, they're going to look at what he does, and then Rondale Moore, who is still cheap and under contract, and they might say, we're just going to do a little reshifting, because at the end of the day, we know they have a stigma. They have an idea of what a starting receiver looks like, and they're over 6 foot, and they play possession receiver. That's what they do.
They do have the advantage of, obviously, he's in the building now. He's got familiarity with Jeff Rodgers, with Drew Petzing in the offense, and Monti Ossenfort. And like, it could be a Beach Will Hernandez situation to where, as I pointed out several times, 3 wide receivers on your roster. I know it doesn't fit the type that Monti Ossenfort, obviously fiends for, like the over 6 foot wide receiver. But at the same time, like, what he's about, right? And he can make plays for you. Why not just lock that in and say, hey, here's a 2 to 3 year deal, probably more money you'll command on the free agent market. And it's a drop in the bucket compared to what their cap space is going to be in 2024. So I think there could be a good chance that, they could find a mutual, common ground here and get Greg Dortch back, because it's going to be a need this offseason. If Greg Dortch goes elsewhere, they're going to have to seek out the Greg Dortches that become available from the other 31 teams in this league.
Rondale Moore is going to count about $2 million against their books next year. I would venture to say like Greg Dortch is going to be paid more than that. That's my opinion. So those are the kind of decisions they're going to have to weigh. But I mean, we got some folks in the chat, like Brian, saying, does he even trust this organization? They have wasted him. I'm sure behind closed doors, there's some truth to that. We talked to Greg before the season started, and I think he's very much taken to this coaching staff, but he did speak a little bit on the frustrations last year when he was producing big numbers and then subsequently had his role reduced in favor of Rondale Moore, and Moore, fair or not, did not produce. And so that's an interesting dynamic. We talk about like the swing tackle, Rondale Moore versus Greg Dortch, and like what happens, who's getting paid, who's staying, who's going. Let's put a cherry with this conversation before we get to the roster holes and what this roster looks like at a 5,000-foot view on Hollywood Brown. He tried to play admirably last weekend against Pittsburgh. He had to come out of the game. He was the lowest graded PFF player, which is probably just a throwaway. I mean, I do give him credit. Didn't practice, not right now, but for the sake of manipulating Pittsburgh defensively, like they put him out there and they tried to make it work. I do think that we're in the final 4 games of him being an Arizona Cardinal. That's how it feels for me. I know a lot of people would say minimum deal, vet minimum, do whatever. I just don't envision a scenario in which he's back with the team.
Yeah, it's tough. And even at the right price, it becomes tough to make the case for Hollywood Brown, just because you just haven't seen the impact, even at a minimal level, to where you say, oh, well, if he accepts, let's say the lowest end of the spectrum of what he's getting on his market, like how does he come back and really impact the game and make the plays? Because it feels like if there was ever an opportunity in his career, it's now, and it's not happening. So I think it's becoming, more and more inevitable that he moves on and the Cardinals look for, a bigger bodied X wide receiver.
Get to some of these super chats. Friend of the program, Topic $64.99. Froldholt mic'd up. That guy is positively dope. He had a great game on Sunday against Pittsburgh. And again, I think has been a lot like that coupled signing of he and Hernandez casually by the front office on 2-year extensions. Like, those are nice deals. That's winning football. I know it's not going to result in a winning season, but like that's something the Cardinals have not been able to do historically.
Right. And can you maybe negotiate this offseason? I know you're going to have a long list to do for Monti Ossenfort, but maybe you just say, hey, let's tack a year or two on your deal.
Yeah.
Because you outperform these minuscule deals this previous offseason. Both of those players are, anytime Will Hernandez is in doubt for playing that week, you and I are like, holy shit, what are they going to do? Who's going to slide over to right guard? And Froholt, luckily, has just been a mainstay. Yeah. And he's been, talk about taking advantage of an opportunity following Drew Petzing over from Cleveland and really just holding down and solidifying a center position that is not, there hasn't been any consistency, any continuity with that position since Lyle Sendeline.
We joke about how bad of a black hole tight end has been for this franchise. Center is not too far down that list. And like, they would pray Rodney Hudson would be healthy and trot him out there to be competent. Meanwhile, like, is Froholt, Jason Kelsey, is he Frank Ragnow? No, but like the Cardinals can aspire to get those players down the line, hopefully. And in the meantime, you've got a center that's there every Sunday, that is not ridiculous with his snaps, is consistent. Like, you just got to check boxes in the middle of your roster, and he does that for a fraction of what you were paying Rodney Hudson. Topic 64 again, $4.99. Thank you so much, my guy. Our two smaller wide receivers, Dortch, Moore, a hell of a slot combination rotation. I think those are the two guys this last month of the season that really have a chance to shine in this passing game. They're the stark opposite of what the team wants, but what the team wants isn't really available right now, as long as Michael Wilson's not, healthy.
Yeah, and they have the ability to make the plays regardless of what their size are, right? And like, they're not going to have just a complete lineup of guys who are 6'2" and above. Like, they will take the exceptions to the rule, and I think that both of these guys have the athleticism, the playmaking ability, and obviously the will and want to go out there and put in the work necessary to do so, and also the willingness to play any position, return punts, kicks, be a gunner on special teams. Like, I know Greg Dortch has already played that position, so those guys, you know what you have to know about those guys. And I think that they have, Rondell's already under contract, and then Dortch is somebody that I think they should talk to this offseason.
They've been money when given opportunities. Speaking of money, how about Desert Financial Credit Union here? Save you money? Look for Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals, for checking, savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. Better time than now. There isn't one. To check them out around the holiday season. Time to get responsible. You got some family money coming in. Let's invest with Desert Financial. If you're an Arizona sports fan, there's no better place to do your baking than Desert Financial Credit Union. It's the only place you can show your team spirit, Bo, every time you make a purchase with that sweet, sweet Red Sea Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. My favorite thing about Desert Financial, not only the array of products and services they offer, they just have a ton of locations. It's easy for me to get my money on my terms. You do the same. Show your team spirit. Open a free checking account online. Get an Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. Visit desertfinancial.com/Cardinals, Bo, to get started.
Team spirit, somebody took a dump on it last night when the Phoenix Suns lost to the
Los
Angeles Lakers. But I'll tell you what, got to watch every second of that game, and I'm going to watch the rest of every second of the game upcoming against the Nets. And hopefully the Suns take out the frustration of bad non-calls or bad calls by the refs on the court last night. Plus, stop turning the ball over. Hopefully I'm watching better basketball from the Suns team, but I'm certainly going to tune in to, of course, our friends over at Arizona Family Sports. azfamily.com is going to direct you where you can watch Suns games for free. You can see the game on Arizona's Family 3 TV and Arizona Family Sports Channel 44. Suns, they're going to heat back up. I think it's inevitable at this point. They're going to get back. They're going to get hot, and you're going to want to check them out. You're in Flagstaff. You can find them on Dish Channel 44. You can find them, of course, in Yuma, Tucson, Albuquerque, as far east as the Kirky. Check them out right now, wherever you live in AZ or New Mexico. Visit azfamily.com. Click Suns Games for listing information in your area. AZ Family, a great resource to help you find the Phoenix Suns games on Arizona Family Sports. And check out our guy, Mark McClune. You got Nick, you got Julia, great sports team over there, giving you all the news every night.
Let's check out the Arizona Cardinals depth chart, Bo, as we enter the last quarter of the season. Looks a little bit different as it relates to the early portion of the season. Let's go offense now. Offensive depth chart.
Well, these are guys that are under contract in 2024.
Yep. Yeah. And there's no left guard there. That's a problem, isn't it, Bo?
Do you want to play left guard? Does Bronny Venerable want to jump in there?
I don't think so. I like, having some snacks and watching the game with PHNX Cardinal faithful. But I've looked at Will Hernandez. I want to say eye to eye, but it's really his stomach to my eye line. And that's just the most fierce gentleman in the NFL, in my opinion, the Arizona Cardinals right guard. So they need to find his counterpart for left guard. And again, like, Humphreys is under contract. We broke it down. I would be very surprised if they didn't get it. Like, they could go out and have a Froholt level signing at left guard and they'd be in good shape. but there's some names we're going to talk about that are going to be really intriguing for this team, some names that they've been tied to. But as of right now, that's not a terrible starting point for next year. You assume that Paris Johnson Jr. is going to take a huge jump. Froholt and Will Hernandez have been very solid. McBride's a star. Humphreys could be replaced with a first-round pick. We've talked about left guard. I like the offensive line. I think the offensive line is probably the most underrated unit on the team right now.
Yeah, it's really rock solid. We identified it as something that we were a bit bullish on when kind of the national media and people outside of Arizona, they thought it was going to be one of the poor, lower ranked groups in the league. And I think it's been, above average. I really think the continuity has been solid. And, it was a group last year that was just ravaged by injuries. But what did you expect from, a squeaky wheel need, wanting to retire center? Bringing back also Justin Pugh, who was thinking about retirement that offseason as well, even though he returned to the playing field this year. And then, I think that they did a great job in building it, getting a guy with a nasty streak back with Will Hernandez, who always wants to be out there. DJ Humphreys was motivated and missed time at the end of last season. I think wanted to come back and prove himself. And then you've got, just the addition to the group that doesn't play or really hold himself as a rookie, and 6th overall pick Paris Johnson Jr., who really kind of infused some just really some momentum into this group, where before it was just like, hey, let's get a patchwork veteran group, where I think that Paris Johnson Jr. almost galvanized this group to where it's above average.
There's something to be said about continuity, and they finally have that up front. What about the skill players? Well, I think in my opinion, 2 of these guys 100% safe. And after what we watched from James Conner on Sunday, I think it would be a mistake not to have him back a part of your team in whatever capacity necessary in 2024. Kyler Murray, we know, franchise quarterback, $52 million price tag. It would take a colossal collapse, events, last 4 games for him not to return. I think the general consensus, 90% of folks, and then I believe almost universally within the Cardinal organization, is unless Caleb Williams is somehow made available, that Kyler Murray's your guy. And then you look at Michael Wilson under contract. Hopefully he can make the most of the final month of the season, has had an injury bugaboo every year. So he's a starter, but is he a stalwart? Slot, wide receiver, running back, open to interpretation, open to an infusion of youth and talent. I don't know if they're going to dip their toe, Bo, into the free agent pool. This feels more like a unit that is going to be boosted by an early round wide receiver potentially, and then some mid-round supplemental guys, specifically at running back. I've told you this before. I think David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is the template for James Conner and a rookie next year. Obviously not Gibbs in the first round, but there's an option for that. Maybe Michael Carter returns in some capacity, but typically those who spend big money on skill players in free agency are disappointed. That's my experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think that they can find, and you have to believe that they can find somebody to supplement the room in free agency, right? And we saw there's some big names out there that I don't think that they're going to be in that sandbox for, right? They're not going to go out and pay Michael Pittman Jr. $20 to $25 million a season to play wide receiver, or Calvin Ridley, who, I don't think the Jags will let out of their grasp. And those are probably franchise tag candidates if they can't get multi-extension deals done so they even become available. So then you start to look around like, who is available? What options do you have? And it's like Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think that they're going to kick the tires on somebody like that. The wide receiver position is just something where it's a bit tough. Like maybe a Tyler Boyd, maybe that's somebody that they could bring in to play like 3 or 4th in depth. But you're right. Like they're going to continue to build this roster, and like the next starting caliber wide receiver isn't going to come from the free agent market. It's going to come through the draft.
Speaking of free agency, well, let's look at notable offensive free agents that they could choose to target or not target, Bo Brock. This is offensively. These are notable offensive free agents of name. This certainly isn't everybody, Bo, but like you just mentioned it, like Michael Pittman's not going to be available. They're not paying their quarterback anything. I think the same thing goes for Calvin Ridley. T. Higgins is a name to watch just because they're paying Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase deserves a big deal. Mike Evans, he's over 30, and I don't think he ever leaves that franchise. But then you've got Jonah Williams, Robert Hunt, Jonah Jackson, Ezra Cleveland. Those are all, I think, real options for the Cardinals. I know Jonah plays tackle, but the guards in particular, you could see an infusion of a veteran on that left side that we just talked about.
Yeah, especially if they add at the tackle position in the draft. Like you mentioned, the reverse kind of Paris Johnson Jr., Will Hernandez tandem, that buddy cop that we love, right?
Yeah.
The buddy cop duo, that tag team wrestling combo. But like you would pair that young tackle again with maybe a vet guard. And Jonah Jackson in Detroit, he's probably got some sort of relationship with a Dave Sears, who's your assistant general manager, and he knows all about him. Maybe that's where you throw some money at him. I mean, 26 years old, former third-round pick. That might be your solution at left guard, a 2 to 3 year deal. Ezra Cleveland also fits that kind of prototype. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if they look to a guy like Evans at the wide receiver spot, and I just don't know if these young guys from Higgins, Pittman Jr., Ridley become available. So, and I just don't know if they're going to look to a guy like Jonah Williams at the tackle spot. That's one of those. Jonah Williams, like, he fits the criteria, or he's the guy, and they're every offseason where teams are going to overspend and just throw money at this guy, and it's not going to match the productivity.
No. Robert Hunt, by the way, 1 sack allowed this year, 77.6 overall, one of the best guards in the NFL. Miami Dolphins. And they got to pay Tua. They're paying Tyreek Hill. Maybe he becomes available. This Cardinal team is going to spend on the lines of scrimmage. They're going to draft on the lines of scrimmage. Like,
I think they have. I think it's a pretty decent guard group too. Like when I look at the draft, you get the kid out of UConn, Haynes. You got kid Tate Ratledge from Georgia, and Cooper Beebe, who's been on the radar for the last couple of years. I thought they thought he might come out last year from Kansas State. Just an absolute beast, 6'4", 335 mauler. You'd love to just draft him and throw him into your left guard spot and just kind of let him work next to DJ Humphries potentially next year. I like that. I'll sign up for that right now.
So T. Higgins is the name, I think, on that group that's most realistic to like hit the market potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Take a guess what his projected contract is going to look like. And again, this is an older projection. So typically projections go up, albeit he's been hurt this year. But take a guess, T. Higgins' new contract in the NFL.
I mean, let's see. Christian Kirk got 4 for $74. That can get up to about 80. I got to imagine that puts somebody like T. Higgins right around 4 for 100.
Good for you. It was about 4 for 93, 95. So right there, as much guarantees as you would like. He is only 24 years old. Listen, if we have to do an emergency podcast in March because the Cardinals paid T. Higgins, I'm not going to cry about it. Like that's a good effing problem to have, and certainly
you can sell T. Higgins jerseys easy. Yeah,
I mean he's been hurt this year. He's only got like just under 400 yards, but he's a big time player out of Clemson. Is it my first choice? No, I think the more we do a deep dive into this draft class, the more I am encouraged by number 1, number 2 receivers all over the place. To me, it's, and I also just watched Kyler Murray win 2 games without a number 1 wide receiver. So like, if Trey McBride's giving you, God forbid, 1,000 yards a season at tight end, like, do you need to pay big money right away for a wide receiver? I would argue maybe roll the dice another year. See if you can go supplemental draft pick, not supplemental draft pick, but mid-rounder, first rounder. Michael Wilson obviously is included in that. You might be able to get by.
Yeah, if you go, say you get a Tyler Boyd, you got Michael Wilson, you've got Rondell Moore, and probably Zach Pascal coming back, but is he really entered the equation as far as true receiver? And then you add a rookie. You say you try to draft the next T. Higgins instead of throw money at the actual T. Higgins and just be patient with his development. I think that you'll be paid off, right? You can, in this draft, and we've talked to somebody very in the know as far as the upcoming draft, and they pretty much echoed, if not just completely hammered the fact that this is such a talented wide receiver draft that, you can find it beyond the Cardinals' own pick, the Houston pick, and in the second round with your own pick, or in the third round with the 3 selections they have.
Good question by Brian. Can you get T. Higgins and still draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? I would say no. I think if we're sitting here doing our final show of the year for the season, and we know where the Cardinals are picking, and they're picking third, you can turn it into the podium, basically, that they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. He's the best player in the draft. Like, if the 2 quarterbacks go above him, that's the receiver that they're going to add this offseason of note. They could get a mid-rounder. They could get a veteran like a Tyler Boyd to supplement, but they're not going to go out and spend big money. Whereas I do think, Brian, if they have a tackle in mind that they want, they're picking 4, 5, 6, whatever, or an edge rusher, and then maybe they are convinced that pick 18, 19, 20, whatever Houston's is, we're going to get a number 1 corner. We're going to get a defensive end or a tackle or whatever. They could say, okay, we feel confident that T. Higgins can take that next step, be a 1,200-yard receiver for us. Let's pay them. Like, I don't think that's what they will do, but you could talk yourself into that. But Marvin comes here with an immediate expectation. If you draft him, Bo, he is having a Jamar Chase-esque type of rookie year, fair or not. Like that, he is having 1,000-yard rookie season. Like, fucking Puka Nacua is going over 1,000 yards this year. Tank Dell was going to do it. He would come in and be your number 1 receiver. He's averaging over 60 yards per game.
But if say you're out of Marvin Harrison Jr. striking distance, say you're at 5, 6, 7, because you're 1 win away from really kind of murkying the waters there as far as who you're going to be in line to get. Like, do you in free agency, if one of those guys becomes available, and I see in the chat, Pittman over T. Higgins, but I think really the issue is who becomes available. I think that if Pittman doesn't, come to a huge extension with the Colts, that they'll franchise him. But if Michael Pittman Jr. becomes available and you're not within Marvin Harrison Jr. striking distance, bring the young man back to where his dad played some NFL football, Michael Pittman Sr., where he was the running back for the Cardinals. I'd sign up for that. And then you're taking a tackle, you're taking the best edge. I think that's fine. But as far as realistically, I just don't think that the Arizona Cardinals that might be a spot that they throw money at in the future, but they would like to put themselves in a position to draft, develop, and then keep and re-sign a wide receiver instead of having to go out there and find one.
Yeah, when we watch like OTAs and mini camp highlights before the rookies are in the fold, like the top 2 targets, in my opinion, on this team are going to be Trey McBride and they're going to be Michael Wilson in the offseason. Like, Kyler Murray's never had an offseason with Michael Wilson. He's played like 1 game with him. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis this offseason. Get those 2 guys synced up, because like we're sleeping on him now. And you can't, like, I'm not going to say you can't trust him, but we're teetering on that point where, like, is he just going to be a player that misses time every year? That's not ideal, right? Like, hopefully not. But like he lit up San Francisco for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, that happened. He can be a big time player for you. He was on pace for almost 1,000 yards at one point this year before the injury. And I think he also was a byproduct of bad quarterback play and not rhythm targets. Like, could you imagine, I think, a renaissance like Trey McBride is having with Michael Wilson, but he's got to stay healthy. Let's get some of these super chats, Bo. Austin, $2. Bronny Venerable, starting left guard. And then you just write my obituary because I will be dead in a matter of plays. Austin,
Aaron Donald, he would strangle you. He'd murder you. You would be dead. You'd be a dead man.
We can, our guy, Britton Golden, has access to a facility, a training football facility close to our office at PHNX. This offseason, Bo and I are going to go screw around there, and I may tear both of my ACLs, but it's for your entertainment.
That's right.
Austin, Bo, $2. Thanks for getting us through the season. Thank you, Austin.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for getting us through a season. We couldn't do the show without everybody chiming in the chat. I have to just sit here and endure what Johnny's shouting about at any given day. So everybody breaks it up, and it's great. We're just we are grateful to be a part of this community. Topic 64, grateful for him. Obviously chiming in super chats. Another one, 199. Sleeper Daniel Arias is not sorry. The big, tall, wide receiver out of Colorado, who is an undrafted free agent, who's back on the practice squad. he actually might even be on the active roster. I have to double check that. But yeah, we'll see how he develops and hopefully gets an opportunity through OTAs this upcoming spring. Maybe he can carve a rollout for himself. Go via Greg Dortch on that.
Yeah, carve yourself out some time to check out our friends at Circle K. Become a part of the Inner Circle Bowl. Join it today by downloading the Circle K app. Best place for free prizes, snacks, weekly entry into grand prizes, and again, like premier coffee, ice-cooled fountain drinks, like pizza to go. Like, I love convenience, and that's what I get from Circle K. I hate waiting. I'm grab and go, and I like premium gas at not a premium price. I get that more. Terms and conditions apply. At participating locations, visit CircleK.com, Bo, for more details. Check them out, CircleK.com/store-locator to find the nearest Circle K to you.
Yeah, I'm a part of the Inner Circle. I obviously cash in on the Inner Circle rewards and download the app. I love it. It was the easiest thing to do. It's free. Also, something that I wasn't aware of before working here at PHNX, of course, seltzers. They're the big craze right now. If you're looking for a little different seltzer, right? I mean, everybody's got one. Wink is got the most intriguing set of seltzers that you can buy right now online to consumers to buy direct and have it delivered to their doorsteps from drinkwink.com. That's DRINKWYNK.com. The product is THC. It's not booze. It's not alcohol. It's CBD in each of their cans, and it comes in 2.5 milligrams and 5 milligram cans online. Zero sugar, 0 calories, and they come in a variety of flavors: mango, lime, black cherry, like all those ones you're used to seeing with the alcoholic seltzers, but here with the seltzers with the THC, and you don't want to miss out on them. And right now you can go online, you can buy 12, 24 variety packs right now using the promo code PHNX for an additional 50% off your total order, and check out their sister product Countdown, available at dispensary stores only. They come in 25 and 50 milligram cans. Right now you can buy them inside the Cannabis Tempe dispensary, all Sunday Goods locations, and the Tucson Green Med dispensary. But go online, use that promo code PHNX, and let's count down to 2024 together in all dispensary locations that carry the Countdown product, but of course the delivered to your doorstep. Wink at drinkwink.com.
Wink, good. Cardinals defensive depth chart for 2024, maybe not good. I think it's the biggest weakness on the team, Bo Brack. Let's check it out. Under contract for next year, a lot of names. Any of them good? Any of them building blocks? I think there's a lot of good here, but there's a lot of holes. And I'm looking at that defensive line in particular. I like Dante Stills. That's a big time problem. That position group, just open up the checkbook, start flooding it with cash, Monti Ossenfort, because the fact that they're winning right now with the current state of their defensive line, I think is a testament to the coaching, because good hell, it's like smoke and mirrors out there.
Yeah. So the defensive front, in the defensive line rotation, they like to have it 5 deep. And right now, these are the 2 guys they have under contract. There's no Jonathan Ledbetter. There's no Carlos Watkins and who's the guy? LJ Collier,
Kevin Strong.
Yeah, Kevin Strong. Those guys are all done after this season, so you'd have to renegotiate, bring them back. So you've got Roy Lopez, who I think you can be encouraged by, that they acquired from the Texans. But Dante Stills is really the only guy moving forward on that D line. So
that's crazy.
They are really gonna have to focus on that this offseason. So the defensive front is going to be so key, because when you looked at how Jonathan Gannon's defense was so successful in Philadelphia, it was really up there with the beef up front, and the Arizona Cardinals, they lack beef. They're vegetarian right now on the defensive line.
I need a double beef quarter pounder with cheese and make it to go, because I need to go and buy a defensive lineman. And then you still need, like, I think even if they sign, and they will, starting caliber defensive linemen, you need to draft some. Like, you almost need to draft multiple. It's become so dire for this team. And then let's look at the pass rush. Like, it's, I like B.J. Ojulari. I think he's a starter next year. Victor Dumakagi's flashed. Dennis Gardeck's flashed. Cameron Thomas played pretty well against Pittsburgh. We talked about Zaven Collins. I think the term I'll use is placeholder. It feels like a lot of these guys are placeholders. No disrespect needed. Like, where's the flash? Where's the big time pressures and the sacks? They just don't exist, right? These are all situational pass rushers. And I'll include Zaven in that. Like BJ Ojulari, I think has a chance to be the one guy, obviously 8 to 10 sacks. You feel good about that high second round pick. Everybody else is, could they start a game and be okay? Sure. They'd be all right. But I think Gannon in particular, Nick Rallis, when they're in their bag, they can manufacture pressure. Do they have an ass kicker, one-on-one pass rusher, a la a Chandler Jones? No, of course not. They don't have that right now. Yeah. And I think you could definitely use a first round pick on one. You could dabble in the free agent market. There's going to be some guys, notable names, high draft picks once upon a time that were available. But that position group to me, it's not as dire as defensive tackle, but it's one that you're like, oh yeah, let's add some capable high end talent to this group.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, as daunting as it looks, just on our graphic alone, I think it's something that could be a relatively easy fix, right?
Sure, I agree with that.
In the way of, you get a Jazir Newton out of Illinois, and couple him with Dante Stills, and then you obviously like some of the guys that were playing this season from a Ledbetter or Strong. You don't bring them all back, right? Because there certainly was games where they were just blown off the line of scrimmage, but when those guys are kind of pushed down the depth chart and down the rotation, but you've actually got starting caliber to potentially, above that type players on the defensive line, it changes things, right? So can you get a Newton out of Illinois? Can you get somebody down the draft? Can you get one in free agency? So like, if you add 2 players to the mix, maybe one signing and one drafted, like now you've got 3 guys who are like joining Jonte Stills, who's the lone wolf in that group that's actually starting like caliber, and you've got 3 in your rotation, and then you just figure out, who you could fill in the other 2 spots, and then that pass rush, right? Like BJ Ojulari, I think you should absolutely be encouraged by, right? Of course, you wanted to see him start right out of the gates, but he dealt with some physical issues. He had a procedure in the offseason after he was drafted. But BJ Ojulari, you put somebody opposite BJ Ojulari, a Jared Verse, or somebody via free agency that's an ass kicker that's had some, a gaudy sack number year. I mean, that immediately changes the complexion of that pass rush group. And guys like Dennis Gardeck, Victor Dumakagi become, just depth and guys that can go in there and do things that they specialize in. And that group just looks completely different.
It's like the Diamondbacks' deep bullpen, right, in the postseason, where you've got your starters, your workhorses, and you've got some guys that can come in and give you an inning and a half. That's what the Cardinals have, the late inning guys. Where's the frontline starter? Let's look at the secondary. Damon Dog, let's check out that defensive depth chart one more time. Safety, this is the strongest position on the team. I think Jalen Thompson warrants a Pro Bowl berth this year. I think Budda Baker is Budda Baker. You obviously want to keep him around. Kazir White will be healthy this offseason. Of course, they could add an inside linebacker, but newsflash, Steve Keim, that's not a premium position. So could Owen Papo get first team snaps this offseason? I'd like to see that. I'd like maybe a mid-round inside linebacker is drafted. But we talked about at the top of the show. Here's what I'm prepared to tell you this podcast. If there's a position they're going to spend big money on, I think they go out and get a bona fide number 1 veteran corner. I think Darlene Thomas, Keitrell Clark, Garrett Williams, all rookies, all cheap. They're in-house. Chef's kiss, you're good to go. You can splurge on a corner. That doesn't mean they wouldn't take an early corner in the first round. But I think the Gannon and company, I know that like that's a position group where they need to get not an adult in the room, that's disrespectful, but a veteran. They need a veteran, an alpha CB1, a number 1 corner. Marco Wilson, he failed that category. That might sound harsh. They gave him every opportunity. Some would say, Bo, too many opportunities. It hasn't come to fruition. I think they go out and they are big game hunting for a number 1 corner in free agency.
Well, and with Kazir doing what he did this season, and it can't be understated, right? He was their war daddy. He was a guy that really kind of brought in, was able to translate Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis' defense to the new organization. And he was huge, what he was able to do in that locker room and on the field. Him coming back from the biceps, and he will come back, and he'll be fine. It's not an ACL or anything like that. He'll be back in his normal position at the linebacker spot. And then, Papo, I don't know what he'll do. He primarily rushed the passer from the off-ball linebacker position.
A good game Sunday against the Steelers.
Yeah, but, he wasn't doing what, they tasked their off-ball linebackers to do. They were finding ways to get him in the game and really simplify what he was doing. But really, the last couple weeks where they got the full staff, full like strength safety group and slot corner group between Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, and Garrett Williams, them solidifying that position group now makes it easier, is like identifying, okay, need an outside corner. And if they can get that Jalen Johnson, I mean, man, does this secondary look completely different, right?
Let's tee it up. Let's look at those notable defensive free agents, Bo. You just mentioned what I think a lot of people are going to consider the crown jewel of this free agency period for the Cardinals. Cardinals are projected to have over $70 million in cap space. That's before any extensions, cuts, contract manipulation, the extension of the contract. They got a lot of funds. They're top 5 in funds. Jalen Johnson could be the benefactor for the Cardinals of a Chicago Bears franchise that could have a new GM and head coach. They did not prioritize him, giving him an extension. They're extending other players. They're extending, not Chase Young, but Montez Sweat. You look at this list. If all these guys are available, you can have any of them. Who are you prioritizing first? Man. Is it Jalen Johnson?
Yeah, yes. But here's what I'll say. Could they get 3 of these guys? Is that too far-fetched? Am I setting the expectations too high?
I think 2 is very possible.
I mean, when I look at this edge group, I'll take any one of those 4 guys.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, Brian Burns, Josh Allen, those guys are unreal. And then you couple him with Jalen Johnson on the back end. And then I'm not saying you're going to get Chris Jones. I don't think he'll go anywhere. But if you could get a Wilkins.
Some of these players could get tagged too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but if you get 2 of these 3 guys, man, does that change how your defense looks, doesn't it?
They just, we talk about it offensively, and they don't have like a bunch of young blossoming talent outside of a couple spots, but they have some veterans that we like defensively, like outside of the safeties and Kazir White, like they don't really have any veterans to build around either. Like that's where you can go and splurge. Like you're going to pay DJ Humphries at left tackle $22 million, but you're not going to spend $22 million on Jalen Johnson in his mid-20s. Like, of course you are. I think if I'm looking at both of these 3 positions, I think the most likely combination is a defensive lineman and a corner. I think edge rusher, they could just run it back and then draft an edge rusher in the early to mid rounds and probably feel okay about it. Like you have to, in my opinion, like Chris Jones is probably that's probably just doesn't fit their window. And if he's going to sign a short-term deal, he's going to do that with Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I think if those 3 guys are available, you have to secure one of them. Yeah. And I think if those 3 corners are available, you have to at least have the conversation. But your defensive line group is just not an NFL starting defensive tackle group.
It feels, when you look at this edge rush group, like Danielle Hunter's not going back to Minnesota.
No,
it feels like that relationship is just.
Chase Young's not signing in San Francisco.
Right. And the me saying 3 of that group was my sensible bows out the window. But the amount of money that they're going to have to spend and premium positions players like that if any of those guys become available, you can bet that Monti Ossenfort's going to be hitting up their agents, the representation. But the only person I see that might be tagged and just destined to remain on his current team is Josh Allen, right? I think Jacksonville would work that out. But your point, like if Brian Burns gets tagged, he's going to burn the stadium to the ground. Like
I think that's a scenario in which they probably go their separate ways. It feels like it. If they haven't committed at this point, unless they have a new regime and they might have a new GM. This could play into the
guy's on his 4th coach.
Right. I think that they very much overplayed their hand of not trading him last year when they had a huge offer from the Rams. Thank God that didn't happen. But Brian Burns, to me, if you can get him on a second that's like the Chandler Jones trade times 2. I mean, like that, he's the kind of player where you could definitely get an instant 14, 15 sack guy. Anybody, and I'm not just being a homer, anybody's getting elevated by this coaching staff, JG and Nick Rallis. Like they resurrected in part Hassan Reddick's career. They took him from a B+, A- to an A+ guy, and he's kicking ass. And I'm happy for Hassan, but there are some guys that really I think could benefit from being a gem, a crown jewel in Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, the defense.
Yeah, everybody's loving Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. And look, this isn't going to be easy for, it's not just, hey, so money. Dylan Richardson, give me Kenny Moore and Jalen Johnson. Here's why I like Jalen Johnson over Kenny Moore. And Dylan, I thought about Kenny Moore when I was looking at who's going to be available as far as free agent cornerbacks. Kenny Moore primarily plays in the slot. And I think that that's somewhere they're going to move forward with Garrett Williams. And I just don't know if Kenny Moore, if his game translates to outside, and he can be versatile. And he's got experience with Jonathan Gannon, like when he started his career and with the Colts. Kenny Moore, Jonathan Gannon was there. So we'll see. But man, is it fun to kind of try to forecast this too? If you get two of those guys on that defensive list, Johnny, it completely changes what you do. And if you do, like, say you get an edge and you get a corner, and then you can just focus put all your focus on defensive line in the draft. I mean, that makes things, it simplifies things.
I think we're looking at a situation which, like, if Jalen Johnson hits the free agent market, he's probably the number one player available. His his PFF grade is this year. Not that that's everything. Yeah. Take a guess what his PFF grade is this year.
I don't know, like 89,
90. And he's got a coverage grade of 90.4. How the fuck are the Bears so bad? And they have a legitimate number one corner, and they just get worked all the time. I know their defense is better. I mean, it's like Cardinals have been a rough franchise for touch and go here and there, but like they re-signed Patrick Peterson. Like when you have an ace, when you have a number one player at a key position, they're trading for Montez Sweat mid-year in a lost year, a premium second round pick, and then just like signing him and not paying Jalen Johnson. I hope the Cardinals are the best.
Can I have some fun here? Like why not? I mean, it's the second
it's our show. We have fun every day. Yeah.
I mean, it's dreaming. It's free. Let's just say, like, if the Cardinals get one of those edge rushers, and then say they're out of the Marvin Harrison Jr. sweepstakes, they're at 5-6, like they could trade down, accumulate more picks, take Jazir Newton out of Illinois, and then it's like you're starting to cook with some grease here as far as your front seven.
Let's have fun here in a second. Let's talk about, before we get out of here, because we got to do some more reads, and then I want to pose a question to you, and I want to pose it to everybody. Guys, sit on this question because it goes into what Bo's talking about. If you can't get Marvin Harrison Jr., what's your best case scenario for this draft? If they're picking 4 or 5, whatever, either a player, trade down, tell me what it is. Hit that like button in the meantime, and have some luck with Arizona Lottery. It's scratch off season for the holiday season because it's last minute shopping done easy, Bo. They're the perfect holiday gift. Bo's got a bunch of them in the office. They haven't made it to my home studio here, which is unfortunate, but that's not to be expected. I'll go out and spend my $1 on top prizes up to $500,000, $50,000, tons of money for just $1. Go out and buy your holiday scratchers today. They're the perfect stocking stuckers for those who are of age. Buy them now. You will not be sorry that you did.
No, you won't be sorry at all. I mean, I'm going to Circle K and I'm making it rain $10 or so, and I'm just checking off boxes for my holiday shopping list. Look at Damon Dog dropping in here. The holiday cash scratcher can win up to $500 right now. I'm going to scratch it off, but I'm also going to tell you about it, my friends over at Shady Rays, because you know what? I can multitask. Looking for a big fat winner here on the scratch off, but I'm also going to tell you that if I win, I'm going to take my winnings. I'm going to go to shadyrays.com and I'm going to check out their full product line, right? They've got some unbelievable deals on some really good looking sunglasses that are going to be that rock solid pair of sunglasses that are going to get you through whatever outdoor adventuring you're doing. And they look great. Of course, they rival any of the boutique sunglasses, brand name sunglasses that you know and love, but they're not going to break the bank. Go to shadyrays.com, save even more money by using the promo code PHNX on your purchase. Because when you do that, you're going to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of premium sunglasses from Shady Rays. So go to shadyrays.com, use that promo code PHNX. You're going to get 50% off 2 or more pairs. Go to shadyrays.com. Find out why 250,000 people are rating them 5 stars online. I didn't think.
Yes. Best case scenario, 2024 NFL draft, not named Marvin Harrison Jr. Are you prepared to answer this question? Do you need more time, my friend?
The best draft option for the Arizona Cardinals, not named Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
Probably Olu Fashino.
For you, that's what you would decide today?
Yeah.
Okay. I disagree. And here's what I would think is the best case scenario. And Fashino is a great contingency plan.
Best case scenario. Got it.
I'm a Joe Alt guy, and you know that. I do think, let's say hypothetically, right now, Chicago, New England are picking 1, 2, Cardinals are picking 3. God forbid that switches. Let's say the Giants are 3rd overall, and the Cardinals are picking 4. And right behind them, the Jets at 5, and right behind them, a team like Tennessee. Cardinals have a relationship with Tennessee. Tennessee, let's say they're ready to move off of, Will Levis. He's too busy flexing, eating bananas with the peels on. They're not into it. They really like one of these other quarterbacks. They want to bring in competition. I think if you traded from 4 to 6 and got another team's 2nd round pick and still got a top 2 tackle, that would be my preference. I know that's asking a lot, but I think I don't want to lose out on a top 2 tackle if you're not picking 3. So let me make that clear. So if I could still secure one of the tackles and trade back and get a pick for a team that wants a quarterback, because we talked to somebody in the know earlier today, there could be as many as 4 to 5. Colin Cowherd's got 5 quarterbacks going in the top 10. Now that's ridiculous. But if you feel like you could manipulate and take advantage of a team that needs a quarterback, I would try to go down ever so slightly. But I'm not in the business of passing on one of these 2, what I think are generational tackle prospects.
I don't think that Monti Ossenfort is going to handcuff himself that much. I think he's going to view, and this is a really rock solid, especially top of the draft, that if he misses out maybe on those 2 tackles, that if he misses out on Fashanu or an alt, that he views that he can get some value down the draft board, and he's going to look at some maybe top prospects at other positions like Jared Verse at the pass rush position. We mentioned Jazeer Newton, who I think is probably just going to be on the outside of the top 10 looking in. Could he maximize the value of his draft pick? And with those quarterback hungry teams, and there's going to be a lot of them, and within striking distance, because of their lack of consistency at that position, you could take advantage of that and still be in a prime position, just like with Paris Johnson Jr., to get a premium player at a premium position.
I think I would be more inclined at this point, unless it's a small trade down, to stick and pick with their first pick and get a true difference maker and trade down with the Houston pick and equip yourself with more day 2 picks. Because I feel like if you're picking 17, 18, 19, you go down to 27, but you can recoup some extra capital on Friday. I think that's going to be really enticing for Ossenfort. Michael, you're Yoki in the chat. Fashanu is a top tackle. Stop hating it because of the past Levi Brown pick, of course, both from Penn State. I can't. Yoki, it's not fair to the young man. By the time if he's the Cardinals pick and he's here and he's in red and white, I will lose that stigma in my brain. But I see Penn State 1st round left tackle. I think Levi Brown, aka Levi Bust, the biggest bust of the last 20 years for this team, given who else was on the board: Adrian Peterson, Darrelle Revis. So listen, I just like Joe Alt more anyway. I'm not the only person who feels that way. So
you like the feeling when your team gets off the bus, the hosting team's like, oh shit, look at these guys.
Paris Johnson
you
Jr.
like to see Paris Johnson Jr. and Joe Alt at 6'6" and 6'8" walk off the bus first, and you're just like, oh boy, these guys, this is a football team.
Do you get I give you credit, I feel like, a lot on this show. I call you out. I call your wins out all the time.
Oh boy.
I was the person last draft season that said I like Paris Johnson Jr. early in this draft, and you poo-pooed that idea, at least March, early April. You did not love the idea of Paris early. Now, would you say it's worked out pretty favorably for the Cardinals?
I feel like I'm talking to my wife right now.
I don't know. Don't say that. That's weird. You're making it weird now.
I don't like,
that's weird. I don't like that.
I don't. I mean, you can pull up the tape like you did today. You had receipts out there about when Trey McBride was drafted, and I would say as a group, you, me, and Frank Sanders, legendary Cardinals wide receiver, who was sitting there with us. we were whelmed by the pick at the time, to put it nicely. But I don't remember. I think at 3, I thought that I said that Paris Johnson Jr. was a little rich for me at the time.
You did.
Okay. And I don't think that that's unfair.
Yeah. And the fact that they got.
And then did you try to talk me into 3 is right for him?
I would have been fine with taking him at 3. It wouldn't have been my favorite thing, but the situation was and is so dire a tackle.
That's right, Jessica. He is my work wife.
I'm uncomfortable now. And I want the show to be over. I think Joe Alt, in all seriousness, is the.
I think they're better prospects. I think Fashanu and Joe Alt are more slam dunk prospects.
They are. They're a better prospect. It sounds like we're being disrespectful to Paris because Paris has not missed a snap.
You've done this. This is you. Where you were trying to point out how you were in his corner, but in a weird way,
there are
you're shading him a bit.
That think I have a stigma, which is correct, against Penn State top 10 tackles. Maybe just go back to my track record last year. I liked Paris more than people early on, and it's been a good pick. Let's take the generational kid that looks like Joe Thomas out of Notre Dame, and let's put him at left tackle for the next 20 years. Joe Alt I don't see any flaws in his game. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves Fashanu because he's a little bit more of a finesse player. Like Joe Alt to me is what I picture as like a Hall of Fame left tackle. I've seen Fashanu is not Trent Williams. I'm sorry, he's not.
Well, okay. And that's fine. Whatever. But they are rock solid prospects. And the debate is similar as I prefer Coke or Dr. Pepper with my bean and cheese burrito.
Right. It's like Paulie
in the kitchen
and Goodfellas cutting the onions. It's razor thin. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good problem to have. It's called first world problems.
You want flowers? You want me to hand you some flowers for your Paris Johnson Jr.?
No, but I would like a PHNX diehard membership for $20 off. And you can all get that right now at the merchandise locker, $59.99 the year, deal of the year. $59.99, get a free hat and or shirt, access to our guy Howard Balzer's articles. He's got some bangers out there. Love our guy Howard. Let me ask you this. Would you like to do a morning show with me tomorrow, mañana, on a Thursday? A little bit of a morning mock with Johnny and Bo. Does that sound like something that would appeal to everybody?
Absolutely. Like a little morning zoo action, like Bo and Johnny in the morning. Hey, everybody. Wake up with Bo and Johnny in the morning. Keeping receipts on each other.
You can do a much better traditional radio voice than I can, so I'm not going to attempt that. But special episode, PHNX Cardinals podcast, live tomorrow morning. I believe we're going to do 10 a.m. I may even wear my jammy jams. We're going to talk draft. We're going to do a mock draft. Open Q&A, whatever you guys want to talk about tomorrow morning. Set your YouTube accordingly.
Are we going to do traffic reports and like, hey, bing, bang, boom, it's 15 past the hour.
I'll bring the sound effects.
You got them? Like the morning zoo, wacky. Now let's check the weather report. Yep, sunny. We live in Arizona, knucklehead. I'm in for it. Let's do it. We're going to do an early show tomorrow. And so set your alarms. If you need an alarm for a 10 o'clock show, though, might be, unless you're working the night shift, might have some issues.
Bring your pancakes, bring your griddles, bring your skillets. We're going to have a good time. Morning show, with Johnny and Bo.
Are we going to bicker over tackles? You think we'll bicker? Is that in our mock draft future?
I just hope you don't call me your wife in the morning, because I'll have just spoken with my wife. I don't need two wives in the morning. Topic 64, $1.99. Thank you so much, my guy. What about its tall, skilled receiver as a first pick? There's one out of Columbus that checks all those boxes, I think, for us.
For sure. But the consolation prizes to Marvin Harrison Jr. are not bad. I mean,
they're elite. They'd be the best player in last year's draft.
Yeah. The other kid that plays for Ohio State, Ndunzie for Washington, who we're going to see in the college football playoff, could just skyrocket his stock. Yeah, Malik Neighbors. I mean, the draft process is going to be kind to those guys because they're going to put up some stupid numbers as far as the 40-yard dash and just how they look in shorts. So, yeah, I can't wait for it. But because of all of you out there and Johnny and myself, that's those names, which is great. It's been fun. Like I like this. Even when the Arizona Cardinals get a roster, when we're not looking at the offensive and defensive side of the football like we did today and saying, could you upgrade these positions? Like, we'll never stop with drafts. It's always draft season here.
Yeah, and again, it works out to our benefit that your boys have 2 first-round picks in a blue chip draft to preview, and we're going to preview it all season, all off season long. Combine, Mobile, Alabama, Senior Bowl, anything and everything.
I got something. Big announcement. Trevor Sikkema is going to join the show on Friday. Pro Football Focus draft expert. Remember, from the Draft Network, guys all over the place, already in the lab. Looking at all the scouting reports, all the tape on the 2024 class. He's set to join Johnny and myself on Friday, so can't wait for that. He
puts together their big board and their mock draft simulator, become a staple of this fine program. We're going to do one in the morning. In the meantime, like this video. Let's get this to 250 likes for your boys here on a work Wednesday with your work wives of sorts. He's Bo Brack. I'm Johnny Venerable. Producer Damon Dog crushed it today with the graphics. Again, subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube. Follow us at Bo Brack, at Johnny Venerable.
Get that diehard membership. Do it.
Do it now. Get it. Screen capture it. Send us to us on Twitter. We'll retweet it. We'll celebrate it because it's worth celebrating. Is a diehard. Join it now. We will see you mañana in the morning, 10 a.m. sharp. Be there. Jammy Jams.
Hey, everybody.
Goodbye. End the show. The show's over. The show's over, Dan.
We all silly like the mayor.